Slima, and this is Professor Alicia Mackenzie's Medievalism in Video Gaming course, ML 300X-Y. For my playthrough, we will be looking at Dark Souls 3, a dark medieval fantasy game where the player is a nameless warrior venturing through a desolate land, fighting numerous enemies, human or otherwise. Today we will be playing through the first hour or so of this game, as well as examining some of its basic themes and concepts, assess how accurate of medieval or medievalist it is, and try to assess also what sort of medievalism it is trying to display here. Alright, let's begin our game.
Yes, indeed. It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. In venturing north, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words. Fire fades, and the lords go without thrones. When the link of fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old Lords of Cinder from their graves. Aldrich, Saint of the Deep, Farron's Undead Legion, the Abyss Watchers. And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital, Yom the Giant. Only in truth, the lords will abandon their thrones. And the unkindled will rise. Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder. And so it is that ash seeketh embers.
So, I like this opening cutscene. I think it does a pretty good job at conveying the sort of themes this game wants you to see. Like, you may not understand the story clearly, but that's fine. Dark Souls games, their stories are notoriously cryptic, and that's done deliberately. You're supposed to explore the world, it's supposed to be visual learning, it's supposed to be going through the item descriptions. We won't be doing a whole lot of that in this playthrough, But we will get a taste of the sort of world that they're trying to convey here. Through its visuals, this cutscene demonstrates a lot about what this game is about and what you can expect from it. There are pilgrims and saints, so there's an obvious religious dimension to this game. There are lords looking menacing as they rise from their graves, so you can expect to fight, typical medievalist video gaming enemies like zombies, including the lords themselves. And all this is culminating in an apocalyptic prophecy. This fantasy world is fueled by what is basically a magic fire, which itself is fueled or linked by powerful lords every so often, just to keep the fire going. Those lords were actually the guys we saw rising from their graves earlier. Aldrich, the Farron's Undead Legion, and Yorm the Giant, all of which you eventually fight in the game, but since they show up later, we will not be dealing with them directly in this playthrough. Problem is, these lords, who were supposed to link the fire like many had before, were just like, nah, and they ran off to do their own thing. It is now up to us, the unkindling ash mentioned in the end of this video, to be resurrected and drag those lords back to their thrones so that they can link the fire. So after the cutscene, we are taken to this pretty simple character creator. It's not incredibly detailed like World of Warcraft. You can't change every physical aspect of your character. All you can alter is your general appearance, your starting gear, and your class. So let's start with our name anyway. That'll do. We can change our gender, so we can be either male or female, of course, but I think we'll remain male just for now. We're not going to stay too long with this. This is the more detailed stuff. We can choose our starting class. The starting classes in this game are something obviously ripped right out of Dungeons & Dragons. You can see on the side there we have various attributes enumerated: strength, health, endurance, etc. We can also choose what class we can start out with, so it may be knight, mercenary, warrior, herald, thief, assassin, sorcerer, pyromancer, cleric, or perhaps one of my favorites, deprived. Yeah, medievalism of a barbaric age, isn't it? Oh boy. We'll just go with the default knight class for now. Unlike Dungeons & Dragons, the classes in this game you're not bound to. You don't have to be a knight forever. They're really just frameworks so that you can build upon and sculpt your character accordingly. The only thing that you can't really change is the minimum levels you start out with. So the knight starts with 15 vitality, you can't go any lower than that. And here we are, rising from our own grave. This is a running theme in all of the Dark Souls games. The player begins their journey in a desolate place full of other undead. So this is where we begin our adventure, the Cemetery of Ash. Given that this is our starting position, I think it's fairly clear that this is not a romantic medievalism that this game is trying to convey here. This is grotesque. We are not starting in some fancy lord's castle with a maiden on our side. No, we are in a cemetery. So this is our player inventory. These are our armors, our weapons. That is my face when I take my helmet off. Let's put that back on. Let's quickly examine my gear. Now, my weapons, armor, and shield seem relatively authentic, slightly stylized. The key thing here is you can notice that there are rags My chain mail on my hips is torn, as is some of the cloth on my shoulder. Even though I have a fairly shiny piece of armor, it's actually quite rugged. It's worn in. It's battle-torn. I think that's also testament to how this game is trying to be gritty and more on the side of grotesque medievalism rather than knights in shiny armor romantic medievalism. And even though this is just one of many different types of armor you can wear, they're all very rugged like this. Even more extravagant sets, this type worn by kings. Bit of a jump cut. Now on to the first enemy. These zombie guys in cloaks that swing foolishly. But then again, if you didn't see that, you'll see it again here. I also swing foolishly. Actual swordsman will tell you that I am swinging my sword like an idiot. This happens all the time in video games. In Skyrim, Witcher, Geralt is way too fancy when he swings his weapon. But it makes a little bit of sense here, considering that we're not just fighting human-sized enemies, but giant monsters often enough. So, I guess it's permissible. Here's another Hollywood trope. Fire arrows, or fire bolts in this case, since the man has a crossbow. Yeah, we're just going to take care of him real easily. There's one other enemy over here. I was trying to play off some fancy moves over here, and I failed miserably. Later on, we will see what I was attempting to do, because right now it just looks like I'm trying to slap him with my shield. We're going to go this way now, down this passage, fog. Turn back. Huh. What's the worst that could happen? Probably just another zombie, right? Oh boy. You're a big fellow, aren't you? And you take quite a few more hits to beat. I apologize now. A fair portion of fighting difficult enemies in this game is circling around them, trying to hit them on the flanks, trying to avoid their attacks. So I apologize if you feel slightly nauseous. That was a critical hit. Stabbed him in the mouth after guard breaking him. Video games love their critical hits. So while before we were fighting simplistic, weak zombie enemies, immediately after that there is a difficulty spike, and we are fighting this giant crystal lizard creature. And he is considerably tougher. He killed me on my first time playing this game. Jump! And there we go. So, after seeing a little bit, I think we can begin to assess what sort of medievalism, at least in terms of Umberto Eco's 10 Little Middle Ages, what sort of medievalism this game is trying to emulate. I jokingly referenced medievalism of a barbaric age when we were looking at the character classes, but I actually feel this game falls much more in line with the enhanced version of that, medievalism of the so-called tradition, because on top of an outlaw feeling given off by this game, there are more sophisticated elements reminiscent of Conan the Barbarian, like sacred orders and secret societies, some of which we'll see. That's a good view. That's where we're getting to right now in this tutorial, but first we have to cross through that area with the big tree. And even before we can do that, we'll be saving right here at this checkpoint bonfire. We, the undead, are linked to this bonfire, which itself is linked to this magic fire I referenced earlier. Gameplay-wise, if when we die, we respawn back at the last bonfire we came into contact with. Yeah, despite this game being called Dark Souls, fire is a huge theme in the game. I mean, there's an entire school of magic dedicated to it. Now, normally we would have to fight off all the enemies in our path, but I'm just going to skip them this time. Unless you have a knowledge of the layout of this place, it's not advisable to attempt it. You will be cornered and killed. But I outmaneuvered them, so that shouldn't be a problem. Now let's see this statue here. It's pretty neat looking. Ow. Seriously? Thought he lost interest. Well, I'm sending him my chiropractor bill. Anyway, let's pull this sword out of this guy's chest. Why not? What could go wrong? So, this is the first boss of the game. The boss in the tutorial. Like many game formats, you fight your way through numerous enemies and environments, only to come up against a particularly challenged opponent with their own health bar displayed at the bottom, the boss. This one being Idix Gundyr. Now, most bosses are designed to be aesthetically pleasing and to complement the aesthetics of the environment. If you're fighting in a water world, they should be like a giant fish or something. Look at Legend of Zelda. And they leave it at that. Dark Souls takes it a step further by adding actual lore reasons for bosses to exist. There's an actual story behind certain bosses being where they are. Oh. This is another trope we see in boss battles in video games, especially medieval ones. A second phase. Boss isn't hard enough? Change up his look and playstyle to make him more challenging. Dark Souls does this pretty well. This guy kind of reminds me of the Imralith boss fight from Witcher 3. The story behind Idix Gundyr here is that he is a champion set up to challenge weak Ashen Ones, and to make sure that they don't get through. The weaklings he kills are not worthy to drag the lords back to their thrones. I think we're worthy. Yay! We're so happy. And there is another bonfire checkpoint next to us. Let's touch it. And let's relax a little bit. We need to heal up. Another jump cut, looking at the pretty mountains in the background. And beside them, there are these huge, ridiculous-looking fortifications. Obviously, this is not supposed to be historically accurate. You can't build a city-sized castle. But it sure does look impressive in a fantasy game, as does this tree with what I guess is Gundyr's coffin coming out of it. Game's aesthetics always look pretty neat. Alright, let's open up this big door that we couldn't until we beat Gundyr. Real big door. Ridiculously heavy, so we gotta show that we're struggling to open it. If you see glowy bits in the corners of the game, those are items, but they're not really important to this playthrough, so we will be skipping the vast majority of them. There are more enemies around here. We're just going to skip them. It's more of the same. Oh look, another crossbow. And here we are in our Firelink Shrine. This is home base for the player, comparable to how Skyhold is in Dragon Age Inquisition, for example. Pretty much anything we need will be here. It's large. You have vendors, and you have this lady here. Let's see what she has to say.
Welcome to the bonfire, unkindled one. I am a firekeeper. I tend to the flame, and tend to thee. The lords have left their thrones, and must be delivered to them. To this end I am at thy side.
Well, so much for not having a
Very
fair
well.
maiden at our side.
Then touch the darkness within me. Take nourishment from these sovereignless souls.
Firekeeper is who we turn to level up. Listen to her chant.
Manifestations of disparity, elucidated by fire, burrow deep within me, retreating to darkness beyond the reach.
She's chanting a prayer. This is how she delivers power onto us. This is how we level up. There are actual lore reasons for leveling up. It's not just a non-diegetic feature of the game. It's something that actually is understood within the game's story. For now, we are just going to level up health, stamina, and attack power. We won't be leveling up again in this playthrough.
May the flames guide thee.
May the Force be with you, Luke. And now we are going to turn to another character of interest.
Ah, another one roused from the sleep of death. Well, you're not alone. We unkindled are worthless. Can't even die right. Gives me conniptions. And they'd have us seek the Lords of Cinder and return them to their moulding thrones. But we're talking true legends, with the metal to link the fire. We're not fit to lick their boots. Don't you think?
So this is a knight. This is the first noble, stereotypically noble figure that we encounter in the game, and yet he is crestfallen. He believes that our task is hopeless. We often romanticize the medieval ages as a time of honor and bravery and nobility, and yet this game is immediately putting that down. This is a lord.
O thou unkindled, and a seeker of lords. I am Ludleth of Corland. Look not in bewilderment as I say. I linked the fire long ago, becoming the Lord of Cinder. If substantiation be thy want, set thine eyes upon my charred course.
I like how he talks much more ye old English. It's a good effect at insinuating that he is, in fact, of a higher birth. It's an old trope that they like to use in medievalist media, but it's effective.
The fast-fading flame must be licked to preserve this world. A reenactment of the first linking of the fire. So it is, I became a Lord of Cinder. I may be but small, but I will die a Colossus.
Jump cutting again. We are going to move on to the next challenge now that the tutorial is done. So, we are going to teleport. It's a video game trope, but again, it does have a story layer to it. In the first game, you weren't able to teleport at all until you defeated a certain enemy and stole the ability to teleport from him. Yeah, believe it or not, even teleporting in this game has story reasons behind it. Another jump cut, and we are going to begin our journey on the high wall of Lothric, pulling out our weapons and going through this little door. I think they do this because they want you to see this view. Over there is Lothric Castle, and it is gorgeous. I like the bridges. Obviously, this is an exaggerated citadel. You couldn't build anything like this in real life. But, again, it's playing up on that fantasy. And this is the capital fortress belonging to the royal family in this game. I walked a little too slowly, so we're going to speed this up. We won't be exploring the castle, but we will be looking at that church over there with the shiny blue window. That's our destination on this level. Another bonfire over here. Normally the game would start us next to a bonfire, but it chose to start us higher up. It obviously wanted us to open up that door and welcome us to that awesome castle, which is our eventual destination near the end of the game. Down here we see a dead dragon, and if you look closely, undead worshippers. They are praying in the direction of the castle, hoping for salvation. Salvation from what? Well, we won't be seeing that in this playthrough, but we may get an idea of why they might need saving. Let's get on this adventure. Alright, so he took 2 swings. He is an undead soldier. He's not just one of those other guys we fought before. That one was shouting, trying to wake up the others and get them to attack me, so I dealt with him quickly. Get down the ladder, through the dungeon, and here we have a spearman. Yeah, his shield's pretty tough too, so I'll kick it out of the way. Stab him in the gut. Deal with this crossbowman. Not that time. Not getting me in the back that time. Oh boy! Yee! That is one angry dragon. And he brought a friend. You're a big fellow, aren't you, with your big axe? That takes care of that. Ooh, a spear. Alright, let's try to get past this dragon. He is not happy. Go now. Just trying to roll through the fire. Doesn't matter if it deals damage. I just need to get past it before the dragon spews fire again. Looks like we just missed it. Good. Alright, let's see what we can find down here in this little tower base. Living quarters and chest. Our first bit of treasure. Let's open it. Find out, see what we have. Oh god! Ow, 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 ow! Ow. Well, that wasn't very nice. It's a mimic. Let's kill it. What a subversion. Usually, when a player sees treasure, they immediately go for it. And it turns out to be something quite capable of killing them. Now, mimics have appeared in previous iterations of the Dark Souls series, but never on the first time. Not the first treasure piece you find. It's not a mimic. So this actually can easily catch you off guard, unless you know about it already. Now, I don't understand the role of mimics in Dungeons & Dragons, but in Dark Souls context, there's a story of a selfish, greedy clan that was cursed for its thievery, in reference to the mimics. Yep, like everything else, there's a story to this. And we get a battle axe. Now this weapon is pretty good early on, so I'm going to switch to it and check it out. It's so absurdly large. It's like something out of an 80s comic strip. Smash tables and barrels in one strike. Let's quickly touch back to weapons for a second. Now, I said before that the medieval gear was fairly authentic, but unsurprisingly, there are more ridiculous weapons, like this giant great bow with a huge metal arrow the length of me. And on the more melee side, we have this ridiculous hammer. I don't think in real life I would be able to lift this thing above my shoulder, let alone smash it on the ground like this. It's not just the weapons, though, that can get a little ridiculous in this game. The gear can, too. We have a whole various degree of weird helmets. Some seem more authentic than others. Oh. This is another trope we see in boss battles in video games, especially medieval ones. Second phase. Boss isn't hard enough? Change up his look and playstyle to make him more challenging. Dark Souls does this pretty well, after all. And even this more light-hearted tone is reflective of this game's visual storytelling power. Other relatively realistic medievalist games, such as The Witcher 3, are much more dialogue-driven, and so they can afford to have their weapons and armor be more consistently authentic. Most of the jokes they want to make are said rather than shown. Reinforcing my idea that this game is following Echo's idea of medievalism of the so-called tradition, we have covenants. Now, a lot of medieval games opt to have guilds or factions that make up important parts of the story. See World of Warcraft or Dragon Age Inquisition. What Dark Souls have instead are these holy orders acting in the background. They are mainly used in multiplayer. And just as historical medieval holy orders had very specific tasks, such as the Knights Templars, who were originally tasked with protecting pilgrims on the way to the Holy Land, the Covenants in this game also have very specific tasks. You were not assigned random fetch quests by a master or anything like that. You are given a specific duty. So, for example, the Aldrich Faithful are dedicated to protecting the Lord of Cinder we saw at the beginning cutscene, Aldrich. Players that venture into his realm in order to fight him as a boss will beforehand be challenged by one of Aldrich's Faithful. Fighting intruders, that is their sole purpose. They do not go and grab Aldrich's lunch or anything else petty or ridiculous that many other medievalist video games would have you do. For the sake of time, we have cut again to the base of the cathedral. Unfortunately, it's a bit dark. It's a rather dreary place, but it's kind of a cathedral castle hybrid. It has fortress towers on either flank, and you can actually go up to the top. It's really just, you notice from a distance that it's actually just a flat keep roof. To the side here, we have some of the pilgrims noticed in the cutscene. They seem to have kind of died trying to get in. Now, the actual church itself is quite dark, unfortunately, but you are still able to make out some of its key features. The Gothic architectural style is quite prevalent in this cathedral. There are ribbed vaults supporting the pillars, extravagant arches, and a feature I've only recently noticed, a pulpit. So this dark, near windowless cathedral has opted to use the jagged style of Gothic architecture, indicating in a small way that it favors grotesque medievalism over romantic medievalism. Alright, cutting again. We are considerably a little more into the game. We're still within the first hour of gameplay. I died a couple times, so I had to use an ember and a magic fire item to restore myself. We're going to open this door and we're going to meet one more character of interest to wrap this up. Someone who falls much more in line with the romantic notions of medievalism. This Onion Knight. No joke, it's actually called that.
Oh. Pardon me, I was absorbed in thought. I am Siegwart of Katarina. To be honest, I'm in a bit of a pickle. Have you ever walked near a white birch only to be struck by a great arrow? Well, if I'm not mistaken, they come from this tower. Whoever it is, I'm sure I can talk some sense into them. But I have to find a way up, and that's just the trouble. This lift only goes down, you see, and... Well, that doesn't get me anywhere.
Solving the mystery of the lift will lead you to the top of it. Afterwards, you will take it back down. You will jump off at this point. Sigurd is thinking again. What has him stumped this time?
Oh, don't disappear like that. You had me downright worried. But thanks to you, an epiphany has struck me square in the head. I've unraveled the riddle of this inscrutable lift. On some days I begin to doubt myself. I went up the tower, so I thought, then somehow ended up here. I'm not exactly sure what happened. Anyhow, do you see that? That humongous beast? I'm no coward and I've a steady hand, but that thing makes my skin crawl. How now? Think twice before you go down that road.
We're going down that road. So, needless to say, Sigurd seems like a more fun-loving character, which is in sharp contrast to the crestfallen soldier or the firekeeper or anyone else we've met so far. Most of them just wanted to kill us, after all.
No! You should have waited! Well, it's too late now. I, Sigurd of the Knights of Katarina, fight by your side! Ah!
So, this fire demon is pretty intimidating. Just blew me off for a second. It's a much more classically evil-looking beast. I mean, look at it. Its eyes are glowing. It is a scary dude. And Sigurd is such a nice guy coming to help us. He doesn't have to. Most characters in this game would just leave us for dead for being foolish. Not Sigurd. He's going to fight by our side. And he's doing a pretty good job at it. Friendly, helpful Sigurd, however, is sort of an anomaly, not just in this game, but in the series as a whole. That's why I chose to end on him. Sigurd's subplot within the game appears to be much more in line with romantic medievalism. He and I are brothers in arms, as it seems. Looking a little toasty there, Sigurd.
That was quite a performance. But you mustn't get in over your head. We unkindled must put our duties first. But, for the moment, we've a toast to make. To your valor, my sword, and our victory together. Long may the sun shine. Well, I'm going to have myself a little nap. The only thing to do, really, after a nice toast.
As you may be able to guess, however, in keeping in line with the nihilism of this game, Sigurd's story ends in tragedy. In giving us Sigurd, this game gives us what at first appears to be a happier story, but in fact, it is subverting our expectations. I think for now, however, Sigurd's earned his nap. So, this was a brief playthrough of the beginning of Dark Souls 3. What we have here is a medievalist game of the so-called tradition, a game that revels in mighty warriors, powerful items of interest, and holy orders, all trying to work through this ravaged land. There's so much more to explore in this game. We have barely scratched the surface in these 40 minutes, but I think this is an excellent taste of what this game has to offer. A medievalist experience that is somewhat authentic, but also full of fantastic, ridiculous elements that can also be tongue-in-cheek. See my sleeping comrade here. Almost all of this is conveyed in visual subtext. The game shows you these things rather than spells it out. Much of what you learn is from what you can observe. Many medievalist games, Skyrim, Witcher, are definitely deserving of academic research. I think From Software's Dark Souls 3 should be counted among them. Long may the sun shine